guest today is Lisa Jones. She is a mental health and illness advocate, a speaker and writer, and she lives in New Jersey in the USA, which is a long way away from Hampshire, England. But you know what? With the technology, it could be that we're in the next room. I love the fact that we can talk to people from around the world and it feels so natural. So Lisa, please introduce yourself. Tell us more about you.
Okay, name is Lisa Jones, and I have 3 children. I'm a single mom with 3 kids, and all 3 of them have all different types of issues. And my son having the most issues. He's diabetic, he has ADHD, my son has bipolar disorder. So he struggled the most, which kind of put me into watching him through his journey has kind of brought me to my journey. And I've so much watching him struggle and watching him overcome so much. So that's what brought me to advocacy. That's what brought me to I need to know more. I need to learn. I need to help others. I do not want, if I can help it, another parent to have gone through what I've gone through with my son in the education system, with stigma, with friends, watching him struggle. So I just kind of, just the way it happened was it brought me to this path. My resentment of the system, my sadness for my son and watching him brought me here. And really just for the one of helping others. Because, he's already further down the road and we've learned a lot, but maybe somebody else, it could lend them some hand, lend them a hand or help them or make them see it a different way. And that's why I'm here.
I think that's great. And I think if, yes, your son is living with these situations, but so are the rest of the family as well, because you're all involved in it. And I'm just wondering, what kind of age was your son when you realized that he was thinking a different way or behaving a different way?
Right. Very, very young, a baby. Why doesn't he, something's not right. Why isn't he picking up on things? Why is he slow, to potty train? Why is he just slower speaking? Why is he agitated all the time? I didn't know what was wrong. And I knew other babies and other children. And I said, he's not developing the same as them. As he got a little bit older in preschool, he was very agitated. He tried to make him learn to read. He just couldn't pick up. No matter how many classes he went to and how many tutors I had, no matter how many hours I sat with him, it was very difficult to get through. And that was just even before he began, he was 5 years old, up to 5 years old. And then going to school was even worse. He didn't want to go. He couldn't pick up the lessons easily. He had to be retaught every night, the lesson of the day. After a while, he just didn't even want to go. He had behavior issues in school. He would sit in the nurse's office or guidance counselor's office all day and say things were wrong with him, just so he wouldn't have to be in class. He'd walk around the classroom. Just all these behavior went on. And then about 2nd grade, it was just, he was very agitated. He had a very, very bad temper on top of it. And I said, something has to change for him and for the family. And brought him to a neurologist initially. And they did a bunch of tests on him. And it was determined that he had ADHD, low H, not very hyperactive, and actually ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder. He was diagnosed with both at that time. And then the big decision was, what do you do? Do you medicate him or not? This is a 2nd grader, maybe a 7 or 8 year old. And I really thought about that. And I ultimately decided to put him on medication. Honestly, it was that the next day, he was eating and he was eating waffles, and it was blueberries on the waffles, and he made a smiling face on the waffles. He handed it to me and he said, "Mommy, I've never been happy before."
Oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
can't imagine what that felt like for both of you.
Yeah. Well, it was vindicating because I thought I was this terrible mother who raised this child with issues and it was my fault. And when he said that to me, I knew it was for him as well as for the family, but it was for him, and it's funny, almost 19 years old, and he calls his ADHD pills his thinking pills, because when he doesn't take them, he says, "I can't think straight."
Yeah.
So,
Wow. I'm quite emotional even hearing that, because I think that is, yes, as you say, you're carrying around all that guilt and shame, and he's I imagine completely confused as to what's going on for him, and all of a sudden that was like a mist being lifted.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So he struggled. I mean, he still struggles with it. He's tapped out on a few of the different medication groups because he's hit the top dose of them. Just last year, not even last year, a few months ago, he went on Adderall because he's tapped out on everything. So he's still at almost 19 years old, is, severely ADHD and needs medication. And now he's finally at this age owning the fact that he will need it probably for the rest of his life. Very big thing for him to own that I cannot stop taking this. Sometimes he will on a weekend. He says when he wants to relax and not think. But other than that, when he's working or going to school, he's done. He takes his medication for it.
That is such a big thing for anybody, I think, to feel that they are going to have to stay on medication for them to function the way, an acceptable way for them, I guess. It's not to fit in the world. I don't know, because I wonder how much of it is the world that we've created that he has to fit into.
Absolutely.
And whether,
I definitely think it is that too, that he told me, it's actually an interesting story. He wrote me I'm not going to say an article, but he wrote this whole literary piece for me for Mother's Day, a pre-Mother's Day article he wrote for me. And he said to me, "I want to explain to you what it feels like to be me in this." Wow. And I mean, this is not a person, he had a lot of difficulty with reading and writing, more because he didn't read, because he didn't have the tolerance for it and the patience to read. Not that he couldn't understand, it just bored him immediately and he would not read. So of course, when you don't read, you don't write well. So he doesn't punctuate well, et cetera, et cetera. So he decided he was going to write for me as an early Mother's Day gift for this year. He wrote me this whole thing. And he explained in it what it feels like to know that you have to take medication your whole life and how society thinks he's abnormal. And he doesn't want to be abnormal. That's why he doesn't, he always fought it, because he said, "I just want to be normal. And there's no way for me to be normal until there's a cure. And so I'm always abnormal, but I know I need it." So it is a very hard place. Money. And he actually said that to me, "I want you to understand, because you're always out there advocating, but you need to hear from somebody who lives it." It was very touching, especially wrote, because for a person with ADHD, that's a huge thing. If someone didn't read and didn't want to read and really didn't pay attention in school that much, it's a big thing for him to sit down and write. And he even wrote at the top of it, "I know this isn't going to be punctuated right, and I know that I don't write very well." Yeah, he gave a disclaimer, but I'm telling you what I feel. Yeah. So, and he's not learning disabled. It's just that school just did not have any interest. They couldn't keep his attention. So, but he did graduate high school.
Yeah, and I think this is it. You know, we hear of these stories of people who are living with some kind of, I'm going to say, disability.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be physical, it could be mental, it could be anything. And yet I'm seeing these people achieving so much against the odds.
Absolutely.
And that's what's not being recognised, I think. And I'm not going to measure what those achievements are, because I think everybody's achievement is their own. And it's what is right for them. I'm not saying they've got to climb, I don't know, Mount Everest or something, or get, incredible degrees or anything, but they are achieving, and they're achieving their goals or achieving against the odds, where they're being told, you're a loser, you don't fit in, or whatever else. And that's really something we recognize that enough.
Yeah, that, I mean, I always used to tell him that, everybody else in school, when they're doing a book report, it was easier for them. For him to do a book report, it took the whole house involved, him to sit down, him to concentrate, him to pick a book. It was definitely an ordeal to get things done. So his accomplishments are way more, I don't want to say earned, but I kind of feel they are, because he worked 10 times harder to get something that my daughter, who doesn't have ADHD, finds very easy.
Yeah.
So, but the world, and I always tell them, the world doesn't know what you go through. They don't realize that for you to get out of high school was very difficult. But they don't need to know. It's our private accomplishment, and it's a family accomplishment, because we pushed them over the finish line. It was really, and of course, he graduated high school the year the pandemic began. So it was just incredibly hard for him to kind of get over that finish line. We kind of pulled him over it. But yeah, his accomplishments do mean more. He didn't have many accomplishments academically. His accomplishment was music. And he's a drummer and a percussionist, plays a bunch of instruments with that. And since he had not many academic, if any, academic accomplishment, when he started doing music and he liked it, which took a few years for him to really like it. And let me take a step back. The reason he started doing music is they said, do you want to play an instrument? And I said, well, why don't you play the drums? You'll get your aggression out. And he was like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything. And then he realized that, and I would recommend this for ADD kids, the drums actually were very therapeutic. Music is therapeutic. But the drums, because he used his aggression, it's physical. He didn't have to use, he had to use his head, but he really was using his body to learn. And he became a very good drummer. And eventually he was in marching band, and he was the head of the drum line. That was his only, I'm going to say one of his only accomplishments in his whole academic career was music. And I became his best supporter, because that's what he had the music. So he would do competitions. I beat every one of them. We did fundraising. I would lead the fundraising. I mean, so everything, I was right there, because that's all he had was that music. And he just loves it, and he still drums today. And he just told me the other day, he said, he has a drum set. He said, I would continue to pursue music, but I don't think I'm good enough. He never thinks he's good enough compared to other people. Never thinks it. And which is unfortunate, because he is good enough. But he's learned to believe that he will never be better than anybody else, because he has to work so hard at attaining what they get. And I'm not going to say easy, but easier than he does. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's a real insight into what it's like for him. Yeah. And what's it like for you? I'm curious about what it's like being his mom and helping him and supporting him, or as you say, dealing with your own guilt, shame, all of that stuff. What's that been like for you?
Initially, it was difficult because you have this vision of your child, and your child is going to be perfect. You know, I remember practicing his name, and oh, he's going to be this great success. He's going to be in business. He'll be this. He'll be that. And as the years went on, I realized that wasn't going to happen. My son was not that. Not saying my son was bad. My son was never going to be this fantasy I had of a child. So that was hard. And then after a while, you get kind of past that. You know, when I heard all the parents, even last year, talking about all the colleges their kids are going to, and what university and what this, and my son barely graduated. It's a hard thing, you know, and you kind of, him graduating was a huge accomplishment, but for them, it was just a stepping stone to go on to a university. Just different. It's just, you have to kind of get past that and not compare him to other people. So, and that's what I've tried to, I'm still working on it. You know, now he's in a trade school. He's going to be doing trades. So he's in a very good trade school. So, and he's happy. And that's all that matters, is he has a vocation and a future, and he's able to take care of himself and have confidence. I have to kind of reframe my expectations of him. And that took years to reframe, because I was just disappointed last year when he did drop out of school. He dropped out of college. And I was kind of disappointed because I had these expectations, but these expectations were my expectations, not his expectations. And so that's something that I had to get through and work through and say, you know, I'm expecting something of somebody that's not what they're able to do at this point. So that, yes, it is hard. And it's hard watching him struggle. That's hard. You know, I still watch him do things where he, you know, he loses his keys every day, loses his wallet. He's, you know, younger, he lost everything, you know, books, pens, you name it, he lost it. You know, he's just, his mind's that's not how he thinks. You know, he just lost keys last week, you know, car keys now. So everything is us trying to chase him around to finding his things and giving him a plan for a day sometimes, or making the first phone calls and then he follows through afterwards, being very explicit with directions with him, because sometimes he needs to have it laid out as opposed to having to think it through the process. Things like we've learned to adapt to that, and knowing who he is, you have to be very kind of clear on what you expect of him, or he might not pick it up or know what's expected of him clearly.
Right.
And people don't think this is ADD, but it really is. You know, it's very hard to, I don't know, I say word motivate, but it is kind of a motivational thing because it's so hard. I mean, I don't even understand it, but it's so hard that it's very hard. And he tried to explain this to me. It's hard to motivate yourself when everything is so hard. So why bother? It's just, it takes an enormous energy to do everything that you just want to sleep. You don't want to even deal with it. It's that hard.
Wow.
Failure rate is so high with doing things, especially if you don't like them or you're disinterested in them. So, I mean, my thing right now with him is just, you know, you've got to have a future and a plan. And that's kind of where I'm at, but it's always been that way with him. It's, you know, we got to have a plan for you. We got to have a plan. How do we get there? I mean, his sister, who is 3 years younger than him, she's strongly academic. She helped him write papers in high school. I mean, you know, because that's something she is very good at, and that's something he struggles. So she would help him write papers. And I mean, help him a lot write papers.
Yeah.
And he's okay with that. That didn't hurt his ego so much, maybe a little, because he knows it's just not his strong suit. And it is hers. And it was her helping him. And he's willing to accept that.
Wow. And I think, you know, I think it is all of us understanding our abilities, our capabilities, our place in the world. There is so much emphasis being put on youngsters to go to university, that they have to be academic. And yet not everybody is like that, even if they don't have ADD or ADHD.
Correct. That's
There are
right.
lots of people that are brilliant with their hands. Amazing. I mean, I have tradespeople doing things for me in the house that I can't do. And yet they're not academic, but you ask them to do something that is practical, they're absolutely amazing and create beautiful things or repair things in such a way. And you know, if we don't have those people in our lives, we're going to be stuffed because not everybody is going to be academic.
No,
And
no.
you know, I think what I don't know how I feel about this drive for every young person should go to university. Because when I didn't go, my kids didn't go, and yet they both achieved very well in their lives. You know, you know, the next generation, my grandkids, and no, they don't want to go to uni, and yet they're functioning perfectly well in the world. So why is the pressure must be so much greater for anybody, one, who hasn't got an academic brain, and two, for somebody who has got that living with that condition.
Absolutely. You know, it's a double pressure, really. It's everybody else is doing it, and yet I don't want to do it, and I don't have the, I hate to say the word capability, but that's just not where they're strongest. It's really not. And I'll tell you, I mean, I did go. I mean, I have a master's degree. So for me, it was very difficult because I was like, well, I was the first in my family to go that far. And I'm like, okay, you're going to keep going. You're going to do it too. And he's like, it's not me, and it's just, and he tried for me. He really did. And I believe he went for a semester for me. And he just couldn't, he didn't have it.
Mm.
Where my daughters are more academics. But I was so wanting him to do it. He's my firstborn. He was out of the gate. And I was like, oh, so it was rough. It was rough. Now I support whatever he's going to do. And I helped him get in the trade school, and I'm connecting him with people I know that do trades, et cetera. And, I'm behind whatever it takes to make him successful and whatever that means to him. Not my life.
And I think that's what we need to remember, isn't it, as parents? It's not our lives. Yeah, it's their lives. And
it's their lives. I don't want to live vicariously through any of my kids, and or him.
Absolutely. And I think it sounds like you've all been really, really supportive of him as well, which is great. Because more, I get the impression it's more teamwork.
Yes, it's been a teamwork effort. I'm not saying that it's been all fun and playing all the time. It hasn't been. It's been teamwork sometimes begrudgingly. It's been teamwork like, oh, he needs help again. His sisters are younger than him, yet they help him. And they have helped him as he's getting older. He's getting, he's learning tips and tricks to getting through. But as he was younger, I mean, everyone pitched in. He doesn't know how to do that. It's going to take us too long to show him. Just do it for him. That kind of thing went on. So it wasn't always happily, but we knew what we were dealing with, and we knew that to make it better, we all had to pitch in. And it was a hard line to walk, and it still is, because I didn't want to build resentment with my other kids. We had to have him all the time. What about me? He always got all this attention. What about me? And that's another thing that happens with a child has issues, has special needs in a household, and the needs are higher than everybody else's needs. And that's a fine line that I hope my daughters understand. They got attention too in different ways, and they have different capability than him. But that's something that I often wonder, what's the future holds with that? Because yes, it was a team effort, and maybe against their will, because they just knew that it had to be done. So that's something I kind of toss around even till this day. I think at the end of the day, I think they're realizing they're lucky not to have to deal with that. and I see that they're pretty close, all three. They just went out yesterday. They went out. He took them out to a nice restaurant, and my boyfriend said, "Wow, they're actually, they get along and they're close." And it was a proud moment that he actually took his sisters out, and they want to be with him, not they have to be with him to help him. So that's where I hope the future goes. I hope they are close. That's all I can hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been a really fascinating conversation, and I hope that it helps other families, you know, whether it's the person themselves struggling with that condition, or whether it's other family members who are supporting and living and struggling with it. Because yeah, it's not easy. I'm sure. I'm sure
Absolutely
that
not. Absolutely.
lots of resentments and struggles and everything else, and having to make sacrifices. So not easy, but it seems that you, yeah, let's hope let's hope we can just help somebody who's listening right now. Yeah. So what is one thing that listeners could take with them, away with them?
You know, I always tell the kids this, and this goes for anything. If you don't own it, you can't fix it. You have to own anything you have. But I've told my son this many times. This is what you've been given. You just own it and you control it. You control what happens. So, you know, don't put your head in the sand. Don't say, I'm okay. I don't need anything. Don't need any help. I don't need medication. No, that's what you have. If you're an adult or younger, or your child has it, please help them. Don't put your head in the sand. And then you control the condition. It doesn't control you.
Wow, such wise words. And thanks for sharing that, Lisa. Yeah. I'm going to put all your details in the show notes, but what's one easy way that people could get in contact with you?
A few ways. They can go to my blog, mindingmentalillness.com, email, mindingmentalillness@gmail.com, on Twitter, at this I have to read because I don't remember my own name on it. It's Minding Mental Illness, but it's Lisa E. Jones too, at Lisa E. Jones on Twitter. That's probably the best ways.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll put those details in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing that today, Lisa. It's really opened my eyes to certain things, and so it's been an interesting conversation. So thank you for sharing that.